down the hammer and pick up the pencil. You're about to listen to the Savvy Radio Show. Learn from real-life real estate investors, experience revealed with the Savvy Landlord as your host.
Bang, bang. What up, Savvy investors? This is your friend. Yep. I'm a friend of yours because you tuned in. And I know it's been like over a week that I haven't dropped the podcast. And you ask, why? Did I die? No, I didn't die. I died in some ways because I have been dragging my feet on the 500 episode. Bam! I'm telling you, this is like epic, depic, out of control, amazing. I never thought that I would ever get this far. I never knew that only 2 people would listen to this. And so I'm paving the way for my future children of tenacity, of relentlessness, of never giving up. I don't know. But I've really been thinking about, I really want this episode 500 to be amazing. And I'm like, what do I talk about? What do I say? And of course I have like another 100 podcasts written, I'm not, a little exaggeration, but I really do have 100 topics. I haven't written them all. And I've been dragging my feet. I'm like, what am I going to say to these people? I don't know what to say. And then I was like, well, maybe I should do some fun facts. And I told my wife, I was like, I got to do something big for this 500 episodes. It's a milestone. This is impossible. It's been tough. It's been amazing. Over 3 years of labor intensive. For what reason? And my wife was like, yeah, I don't know about the fun facts. And I was like, I don't know what else to talk about. So that took me another 5 days just to not come up with nothing. And then I'm chatting with my homeboy last night, who's a good friend of mine. And he asked me some deep questions. When was the time when you weren't insecure anymore? And I was like, wow, that's a really good question. And, I gave him some examples of when I was super insecure as a person and, try to overcome certain things. And what it boiled down to is, failure. The more that you fail, the more that you grow. And I don't know if that's cliche or if it resonates, whatever, I like residents, but it resonates with you. But, I was like, man, I'm going to cut this podcast. I've been dragging my feet way too long. It's Wednesday already. And I need to drop these. I need to get the ball rolling. And so I was going to talk about some failures that I've had. And then I was starting writing this podcast. And then, man, I got so many failures. And I was like, man, I could write like 10 podcasts on failures. So what I did right and what I did wrong. So I'm going to start dropping those here pretty soon. But I'm still going to do the fun facts. And we'll just go from there. So, episode 500 is just off the cuff, not organized and all over the place. And that's just how we roll here at the Savvy Camp. And big things for 2019. And I got my goals all written out. And I'll be doing that episode pretty soon. So hang tight and give you a recap of what happened to me in 08 or 18. Anyway, here's some fun facts about me. And hopefully you can get a grasp of where I came from and where I'm going. And what's cracking. All right. Number 1, I worked at McDonald's. Yep. I believe when I was 14 years old in New Jersey, I had to get a work permit because you can only work at 16. And my mom signed a work permit. And I actually worked at McDonald's and I made $3.35 an hour. It was a very interesting time of my life. Of course, my mom worked 3 jobs at the time. My dad was nowhere to be found. And my brother was in a foster home at that time. But I remember walking to McDonald's and I had a job at 14. 14 years old. I tried to think about it and try to understand. And of course, back then I was really not 14 physically, but mentally I was like 18, 20. And I remember walking and I remember, there was a basement and they would train you with videos. It's so fascinating. 20, 30 years later, 36 years later, 45, damn. So that's 31 years later. I still remember that experience. I remember Diet Coke. I remember when chicken nuggets just came out. I remember that you had to actually physically flip the hamburger. I actually was a cook for a little while. Then I was the front person. I also remember making Egg McMuffins. It was a circle metal thing and you threw an egg in there. But I learned a lot about, I remember my first paycheck I ever made, and I went and bought a gold chain. I know that's ghetto, but that's how it is when you're from the hood in New Jersey with no life. But it was experience. I remember the one thing that still resonates with me, two things. One was like, if you can lean, you can clean. And I was like, never stop. Number two, I learned that would you eat that hamburger? No. Then why are you serving that hamburger? Man, isn't that interesting? Pretty fascinating. Yep. When I was 14, I worked at McDonald's. But let's redial back about 3 more years before that. When I was 11 years old, I was actually working. And when I actually started, and I've been working since I've been 11 years old all the way till 45 until today. I was a bus boy for my mom's restaurant in New Jersey called Jorgensen's. And I didn't understand life at the time. The only thing I knew is that I wanted to be loved, and my mom worked all the time, and I didn't have a dad. But I wanted things, and I wanted to make money, and I was bored out of my mind. And so they let me work there for cash when I was 11 years old. So isn't that fascinating? Here's another fascinating thing. When I was 16-ish, and I think I lied on my application, I think I was 15, I actually was a telemarketer. It was a sweatshop. I remember going into this room with a bunch of telephones and calling people and asking people for donations for the Shriner Circus. And I remember getting paid in cash. Now, these skills that I learned at a young age, busboy on my feet, McDonald's when I was 14. And then I worked, at a telemarketer. I got rejection. Now, I still had a low self-esteem through all that process, but it was just fascinating when I look back. I also worked at Red Lobster restaurant when I was 18. I also worked at a electronics store in the mall when I was around 18. I worked at Sears selling electronics, and I learned the power of returns. And I remember Christmas season, I made all this commission, and then in January, they took it all back because people returned electronics. And I just read an article the other day, why people return stuff is because either the salesperson didn't educate them or they weren't educated on it. Thought that was interesting. So there's some fun facts about me. I'm trying not to make this the Steve VanCauwenbergh Savvy Show, but I don't know, maybe this will resonate with you. Maybe, where'd you come from and how'd you get here? I think it's so critical to remember where you come from. I mean, you gotta remember, and it's just, man, when I deal with drama and tenants screaming at me and I got to evict somebody in the month of December, man, I was there at that one time. I remember my mom and myself being evicted. Here's another thing. Another one is that in the military, I actually applied. I was in college. I couldn't pay my bills in college. And I remember trying to take my finals, and I got this note in my mailbox, and it said, you're not going to be able to take your finals, or they're not going to go for any credit because you have a balance on your account, and you have to pay your balance before these finals would actually give you credit. And I was so bummed and so devastated. And that happened to me several times in my short amount of time in college. And I remember I'm going to sign up for the military, and I'm going to pick the best job with the most bonus. And at that time, when I applied for the military, and the MOS was an EMT. And if you know me well enough today, it's very interesting. I hate blood. I can't even watch it on. My son is like a hunter, and he's talking to me about skinning animals, and I'm like, boy, you talking to the wrong dude. Like, I can't even watch it on television, young man, let alone do it myself. I can barely touch a fish. But what happened was I was so frustrated and defeated, and college just wasn't my deal, and it just wasn't my thing. And so I went to the recruiter, and, I passed the ASVAB, barely passed that deal. I did my physical, passed that deal. And they're like, okay, Mr. VanCauwenbergh, you are going into the military in August. And I was like, oh, okay. This was like the summer. So I took a Greyhound back to California, kicked it with my mom, kind of said goodbye. worked at Domino's Pizza. Yep, I delivered pizza in the hood where people were getting stabbed and robbed. It's just amazing. I'm almost about to cry where I came from. And I went there to say goodbye to my mom, and I'm about to go to the military because I'm going to start my business. I'm going to get this $4,000 signing bonus. I didn't even know what an EMT was, but I was so motivated and so tired of being put down that I can't get my finals. I can't do it. I got no money, and I'm going to be in the military. And so I, stayed the whole summer there, delivered Domino's Pizza. And then it was like the beginning of August. I was like, yo, Mom, I love you. I got to bounce out. I'm going to go into the military. So I got my bag together, 3 pairs of underwear, 3 white T-shirts, and 3 pairs of socks. And this is how dumb I am. I called the local recruiter. I said, hey, my name is Stephen VanCauwenbergh. I'm ready to ship out August 20-something. He's like, where are you from? I said, well, he's like, where'd you sign up from? I said, Oklahoma, Shawnee, Oklahoma. He's like, son, you have to go to there to ship out. Seriously? Yeah. Now, of course, back then I had no thinking. I spent all my money and just had the best time of my life, I thought at the time, making, $2 tips at Domino's. And I had to take a Greyhound. I spent all my money. My mom has no money. I took another Greyhound back to Shawnee, America. It's crazy. And I showed up at the recruiter's door and I was like, yo, hey, I'm ready to ship out. Oh, Mr. VanCauwenbergh, there's some technical difficulties with your paperwork. Some of your paperwork wasn't processed properly, and we're going to have to move your ship date to November. And I was like, wait a minute. Hold up. Wait a minute. Let me tell you something. I'm homeless and I have no place to go. And I don't remember. It was so dark at that time of my life. Some dude at his name is Joe Knox, let me stay at his crib, which was a garage apartment above a garage, and I slept on this dude's couch, and it was a crazy time of my life. I had no place to go. I had no job, and obviously, going back to college was not even an option. And at that time, people were really nervous for me. I definitely loved Jesus at this time of my life. I was just crazy at this time, for the Lord. And I remember being 190 pounds. Now I weigh 260 right now, ladies and gents. So 190, I was a walking skeleton. At 6'2", and people would be like, man, is that dude on drugs? No, I wasn't on drugs, ladies and gents. I was homeless and broke with no food. I remember being so desperate that I'd be walking on campus because I had nowhere else to go, and somebody would roll up on me and say, hey man, you want to eat dinner? I'm like, yeah, sure, and sure enough, I made it through that process. And I remember vividly my homeboy that I was staying with, he was like, yo, how long is this going to be? And I was like, I don't know. And I think that's what's the problem with society, man. How long is this going to be? How long is this going to take? Now, I had no idea that I would ever be in real estate. I would never know that I would ever even hear the word millionaire. I'm a broke person from Dover, New Jersey that landed in California, accepted Jesus. Who is the Jesus character and sleeping on some dude's couch? I mean, it's unbelievable what you can do with the capacity. I'm telling you, I think that, man, I was selfish at that time of my life. The dude was like, yo, you got to move out, basically. And I didn't have a place to live, but there was one place that I found that, check this out. I stayed at a boarding house. It was $100 a month. And I didn't want to go to the boarding house because it didn't have AC. Now in Oklahoma, it's hot out here. Like, I'm not used to this weather. It took me about another couple of weeks or a month to move over there to this place. And I remember moving in. And I mean, I could tell you stories and stories. I remember one time, man, I opened my mailbox and there was cash in there. And someone just blessed me beyond recognition. It's just pretty crazy. But all of these defining moments make you who you are. And so my goal, I have to reflect and go back, man, 500 episodes. I remember Then my homeboy Sean and I, we tried to do this podcast, and we had this vision about 4 years ago. Man, real estate was kicking off, and I was like, man, we're gonna do this together, because I know I couldn't do this on my own. And I bought a Macintosh anti-Mac, and I bought a Mac for GarageBand, and this and we could, my friend and I, we could never get the podcast rolling. We could never get it to work. I wasn't tech savvy with a Macintosh, and it was the most frustrating situation. And then the other day, my wife, a year later, basically, and I'd have it on my goals board to have a podcast. And a year later, my wife was like, yo, you need to do that podcast. I think you have a lot to contribute to people. And I was like, man, people don't want to listen to me. I mean, and, here I am 5 years later, and I would have never have done this if my wife didn't believe in me. It's pretty remarkable. Well, anyway, hopefully this episode motivated you. If this was cool for you, if you want to know more about me, tell me more about you. Tell me, I got some people coming on the radio show pretty soon. Pretty stoked about it. Just been working on it. And I appreciate your patience. I appreciate all the folks that have been texting me. Yo, where's the episode? You miss it. And it's been a blessing this far. I don't know where this is going. I think I have a goal of another 500 episodes. Now, it may end when I hit 1,000. Who knows? But I just want to say I appreciate everybody that's always been encouraging, people that send questions and email. And man, it just makes my life easier. And I hope that to show you that you can come from nothing and build an empire and have an epic life. If you choose to, you've got to make the decision today. I'm going to do this, hell or high water, no matter what. And it takes time, and you just say, I'm going to do it. Sometimes you just got to say, I'm going to work at Google. Sometimes you got to say, I'm going to be a millionaire. Sometimes you're going to say, I'm going to buy a crib this year. Stop buying courses, stop listening to all these podcasts, and put it to action. Get off the couch, get out of the car, go jog, make this mother happen, and build the best year of your life.
Thanks for listening to the Savvy Radio Show. Glide online and listen to our other motivating episodes at savvyradioshow.com. Connect on Twitter at LandlordBook, and always be buying assets.